Okay, so hello everyone, my name is Pritika Agarwal. Today I'll be teaching you about the ventricular system of the human brain. First of all, let's see what exactly we'll be seeing and learning today in this video. So first of all, we'll see about what are ventricles, what are the types of ventricles, how are the ventricles interconnected, we'll draw the diagram of ventricular system, and we'll label the parts of ventricular system. So first we'll see what are ventricles, then we'll see the types, when we'll see the interconnections, then we'll draw a diagram, and then we'll label the parts. So first of all, let's see what are ventricles. Ventricles are basically the cavities which are present in the brain. We usually have cavities, spaces present all around the body, but specifically which are present in the brain are called as ventricles. What is their function? Their main function is to produce the cerebrospinal fluid or the CSF. What does it do? It flows all around the cranial cavity as well as in the spinal cord and provides various functions. It has a list of functions we will learn in the CSF video. Now, this is a front view of the skull. This shows the ventricular system. Since we have 4 types of ventricles and they have interconnections, so the entire system is called as a ventricular system. So this over here in red and blue is what you can see is the ventricular system, and this is the front view or the anterior view of the skull. This is the anterior view of the skull. So we label this diagram later on when we learn entire ventricular system. So first let's see what are the types of ventricles. We have 4 types of ventricles. We have 2 lateral ventricles, we have 1 third ventricle, and we have 1 fourth ventricle. Now we will be seeing the location of these ventricles side by side with the diagram. So the 2 lateral ventricles are located in the 2 cerebral hemispheres. So over here, this is a lateral view of the brain. This is a dissected brain. We have removed the cranial cavity. What we see over here is the brainstem. That is all it's seen over here. Now in this we have labeled the ventricular system. So this is a lateral view, so therefore we can only see 1 lateral ventricle. So this is a lateral ventricle. This is what we call as a cerebral hemisphere. So we can see 1 lateral ventricle present over here. So the other one will be present right behind it. Now we have the third ventricle which is present in the diencephalon. So this is a diencephalon. This is where the third ventricle is located, exactly in the diencephalon. Then we have the fourth ventricle. It is present between pons, medulla and the cerebellum. It is very clearly seen in this picture. Over here, this part is called as pons, this is medulla and this is cerebellum. Over here is the fourth ventricle. Let's label it. So this is pons, this is medulla and this is cerebellum. And over here comes your fourth ventricle. This is your third ventricle and this is your lateral ventricle. Okay, I hope I'm very clear. Now let's see the interconnections which are present between the ventricles. How are they interconnected and how do they become a system? So the 2 lateral ventricles are connected to the third ventricle by the foramen of Monro. So we'll see it in the diagram again side by side, so it's very clear. So this is another diagram, again the lateral view. We have removed the brain, we have removed everything, and we have only dissected out the ventricular system, and this is an animated picture, sorry. So this is the lateral ventricle. These are the 2 lateral ventricles. This is the third ventricle in yellow. This connection, this is called as foramen of Monro. It's not labeled here, I'm sorry for that. So this is the foramen of Monro. Okay. Now let's see the connection between the third ventricle and the fourth ventricle. It is by the cerebral aqueduct or the duct of Sylvius. So this is the third ventricle, as I told you before, yellow colored. This purple colored is the fourth ventricle, and present between both of them is the cerebral aqueduct or the duct of Sylvius. Duct of Sylvius. Then we have one more thing, that the fourth ventricle continues down as the central canal, and the central canal further continues down as the spinal cord. So over here we can see the fourth ventricle continuing down as the central canal, and this central canal further continues down as the spinal cord. So if we make it down more, so this somewhere down becomes the spinal cord. Now we've seen pictures before, so we'll label all these connections in them also. We'll see it in them. So first over here, this over here is foramen of Monro. It's not labeled here, so let's label it. So this is the foramen of Monro. This is the cerebral aqueduct or the duct of Sylvius. It's labeled. Then we have the central canal, again it's labeled, and this continues down as the spinal cord. Now as I told you before, let's label this diagram entirely. I hope you will be able to do it. So let's see. These are the two lateral ventricles. This over here in red is the third ventricle. This over here is the fourth ventricle. Now let's see the interconnections which are present between them. Foramen of Monro is not very clear since it's the anterior view. So it's somewhere over here. So this is the foramen of Monro. This is the cerebral aqueduct or the duct of Sylvius. And this is the central canal which continues down as the spinal cord. So over here, if you see very lightly, we have the brain as well. So cerebral hemispheres are over here, that is very clear, we could see. But if you know, diencephalon is in this location. So here is the third ventricle. So it's very clear in this picture as well. Now let's see what do we draw if we get a question on the ventricular system. This is something which you have to draw if you get a question on ventricular system. So first of all, you will draw the lateral ventricle and you will write over here that it's the lateral view. Okay, so this is the lateral ventricle. This is the third ventricle. They both are connected by a foramen of Monro, and it is also called as interventricular foramen. Then we have the third ventricle connected to the fourth ventricle by the cerebral aqueduct or the duct of Sylvius. Then you can make it down, you will make one more label over here, and that you will call as the central canal. So let's practice again. So this is the lateral ventricle, third ventricle, fourth ventricle, foramen of Monro, cerebral aqueduct and the central canal. Thank you so much for your patient listening. I hope the video is very clear. I hope you've understood the topic. Thank you so much.